Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Find Your Fall CSA, our first event today. We're doing CSA on a budget with LaToya Drake. Thank you also to all of our partners, Edible Kentucky, Kentucky Horticulture Council, Kentucky Proud, Organic Association of Kentucky, and the Food Connection. Okay. So today, we're just going to do a really quick 5 or 10 minute introduction just on CSAs in general, because this is the Find Your Fall CSA Fair. And then we're going to get into our conversation with LaToya.
Giving you enough to get you through the whole 9 days.
And then we just are going to have a few questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, don't worry about it. You can pop those in the chat and we can ask those as we go along with our conversation. But also you can save those for the end and we'll have a special 10 minutes for Q&A. So during this Find Your Fall CSA event, we are promoting over 25 partner farms across Kentucky that have shares available this September, October, and November. You can view each farm's info and find resources in the CSA's in Kentucky Facebook group. So if you are in this event, you probably have already heard of the Facebook group, but it is a really strong, I think 2,800 member group, and it is great for different resources, but you can learn about each farm over the next 8 days and learn all about them. But also you can see a full list of all of our partner farms, including ones that don't offer fall CSA shares, over on the Kentucky Proud CSA directory. Don't forget to stay tuned each morning as well as we share member tips and tricks in the Facebook group and our other live event, which is going to be September 14th, where we're having a live cooking demo with Chef Tanya from the Food Connection. So you might be wondering, if you are already in this group, you might be familiar with CSAs already, but if you are just joining, we're going to give you just a short overview of what this food purchasing model is. So CSA is essentially a local food subscription that is purchased from a farmer in your area, and it's normally paid for at least partially in advance of the growing season to help the farms finance seed, labor, and equipment. In this case, fall CSA shares help support the next year's operation. CSAs offer a more secure market for farms and farmers and help members gain access to the freshest foods during the season. What separates CSA from other box models is the relationship between the farmer and the members. Members invest in the farm and the farmers do all that they can to provide a high quality eating experience for these members and take them on a journey that is growing food in Kentucky. This week, we're featuring all types of farm shares that include subscriptions for produce, meat, and other value-added products. So next, without further delay, I want to introduce LaToya Drake, who is a wonderful force in the Kentucky food scene. LaToya holds a Master's of Science in Integrative and Functional Nutrition and received her undergraduate degree in sociology from the University of Louisville. She serves on numerous committees, including the Feeding America Kentucky Heartland Board and the Sustainable Glasgow Farmers Market Board. Much of her career has been focused on getting folks fed, whether that be working in food service, cooking meals for residents at youth facilities, organizing a community garden, or educating folks on proper use in her role as an extension agent. LaToya believes that all her community members deserve access to fresh and healthy food, and her current efforts in the community focus on promotion of local foods, sustainable agriculture, and nutrition education. Today, she joins us from Glasgow, Kentucky for this conversation. So without further ado, LaToya, if you would like to share your screen.
Definitely. All right. Can you guys see it okay?
Looks great.
Awesome. I'll get started. Like she said, I'm LaToya Drake, and my current role is program coordinator with Kentucky's Nutrition Education Program, also with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. And I really love this role because I get to focus on educating folks who receive EBT benefits and food stamps, which used to be food stamps in my day, or who have lower incomes. I get to help them cook better and eat better for less. And this means a lot to me because I grew up as a product of EBT. You know, many of us did. So it's important that we use those benefits smartly and maximize the amount of food and maximize our savings. So we're going to talk about cooking with your CSA on a budget. And we've already talked about what a CSA is. I appreciate you explaining that, but there are many benefits to consumers related to a CSA. So let's talk about some of those. When you join the CSA, my dog hears something outside. This is when you do things at home or webinars. When you join a CSA, you become part of a community, right? You have a localized food system. You get to know where your food is coming from. You get to also, some CSAs are sold through farmers markets. So that's really awesome because many farmers markets accept EBT. And hold on one moment. So many of them are sold through farmers markets, some CSA boxes. I've had one through my local farmers markets. And that makes it more accessible for folks who might have EBT benefits because they can use those to purchase those boxes, which is awesome. So you're going to get high quality and fresh, nutritious foods from your CSA, and they're going to be harvested within hours of delivery, right? So you're going to have the freshest of foods. So it's going to retain more of its nutritional value. So we want to make sure that we're preserving this food and reducing food waste because that's key to cooking on a budget, right? So food waste cost us a person about $370 per year. That's a person, not per family. So that's something to keep in mind. We want to make sure that we're reducing food waste and using the food that we have, and that's going to help us save money. So let's talk about reducing food waste, okay? The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that about 30 to 40% of food in the US, equating 63 million tons and $218 billion is wasted annually. So that's 30 to 40% of food is wasted annually. Food waste in America has been increasing at an alarming rate with a 50% increase since the 1970s. So additionally, American consumers compared to folks across the world, we waste more. Yay, we're winning. We waste more than most folks across the world, especially our South Asian counterparts. Food waste, though, occurs in every part of the food system. So it's going to be from the harvest until it's on your plate. But most of the food waste occurs right in our home, right? It's consumers throwing away leftovers, throwing away food they didn't use. Most of it's occurring at home. So according to this survey, 31% of the total waste, which is about 133 billion pounds, I can't even imagine that much food, at a value of $62 billion is wasted, right? So consumer wasted food is because of improperly stored food. And we're going to talk more about that too. You cook more than you need. You throw out the extras. You might acquire more food than you need. And we need to learn ways to decrease the food waste in our homes so we can maximize our budgets, right? One way we can do this is by, I haven't even been switching the slides. There I am. Hey. Here we go. One way we can do that is by meal planning. So meal planning can save food waste and money. The average US household throws out 1 in every 4 bags of groceries, costing $1,866 per year. So that's almost $2,000 a year per household due to throwing away groceries, throwing away food that we don't use. So by planning meals in advance, individuals and families can have a much better idea of the quantities of food that they will need for a specific amount of time. So by eating all the food that you buy, you're going to save money that may have been spent on food bought and on an impulse, right? So thinking about the CSA and the sizes, many folks offer different sizes. So think about what size is best for your family when you purchase that to avoid wasting any food. And we're going to talk about too, giving some of that food away if you can't use it all. If planning your grocery list for a whole week seems overwhelming, start with 2 or 3 days, at a time, just to get your feet wet. As planning becomes more of a habit, then you can add more days. Also, considering reducing food waste, we want to think about how we shop and our shopping habits. Before we shop, at the farmer's market, the grocery store, wherever that is, to complement our CSA box, right? We want to shop our kitchen. We want to take an inventory of all the things that we have in our pantry and our refrigerator, and we want to use that first, right? So we want to make a list also, no matter where we shop. And that's going to help us reduce food waste, and it's going to save time and eliminate browsing. Recently, I really like to do, grocery store shopping online, because if I don't go to the big box store, I can't buy the shirt that I don't need. And that's going to make, it's going to mess with my food budget. I can just buy what I need for that week. So when you make your shopping list, you want to include what you need, just what you need. So fresh ingredients and just enough for what you need. So if you buy a bag of potatoes, for example, you might not be able to eat that bag of potatoes before it goes bad. It might be more cost effective for you to buy 2 potatoes or 3 potatoes. It seems like you're spending more money off top, but you actually are saving money because you're not throwing away food. So you want to be realistic also about your lifestyle and make shopping lists based on how many meals you plan to eat at home. And consider this with the CSA box too, and the size. You also want to consider the timing too. You want to plan to get enough food that will only last till your next trip. You don't want to over purchase. You want to be, we want to understand that fresh food can spoil more quickly than packaged foods. And that is something to really consider with your CSAs. You want to use those fresh fruits and vegetables before you start on your canned goods. But canned is grand. Canned is just fine too. And you can discover ways to actually can and preserve your fresh fruits and vegetables at the extension office. You're going to find the best scientifically backed, safest ways. So contact them if you want information on that. So we also want to be considerate of the date labels when we shop in the grocery store, because we're going to need to shop in the store to complement our CSA vegetables, right? We might need to purchase some grains, some pasta, some bread, different things that we're not getting in our box. We want to purchase that in the store, but we want to be conscious of the labels. So, sell by date labels are the manufacturer recommended date to sell by. This does not indicate food safety. And best by dates are related to quality. The food is going to taste the best by this date. And use by dates should be followed more, and that's going to be the peak quality of the item. And you want to consider those. Sometimes you can still eat food after those dates safely. It's just not going to be as good quality. And we want to consider those when we're picking out food. Something important that we're going to talk about more too in a minute, because cooking on a budget and saving money is about storing your food properly, right? So storing food properly ensures that it lasts longer. This is particularly true for produce. So Americans throw out 19% of their vegetables and 14% of their fruits after purchasing. So we're just throwing food away in the trash can. So we notice that, and we understand that produce often emit a natural gas called ethylene gas, and that's emitted by many fruits, and it's going to help them ripen, and it's going to also ripen anything around it. It might encourage fruits to rot if you put a fruit next to one that is not that is ethylene sensitive. So let's think about some of those ethylene gas releasing produce. Those things include apples and cantaloupe and honeydew and kiwi and plums and avocados, bananas, nectarines, peaches, tomatoes. Ethylene gas sensitive products include ripe bananas, broccoli and cauliflower, cabbage, carrots, cucumber, peppers, sweet potatoes, and watermelon. So you might not want to store those next to each other unless you want them to ripen. That's going to help those things ripen if you need to, something to ripen for you. And I'm just losing my shopping. There we go. We talked about that. And date labels and storing food. Now we're on to serving food. During mealtime, taking portions that you will finish is going to help you reduce food waste. We can always go back for seconds. So that's important to remember. You don't have to fill your plate up and because you might not eat it. And we want to avoid throwing away food. So we're saving our money, right? So take a little food that you plan to eat and you can go back for seconds if you'd like to. And then leftovers, or I like to call them planned overs. Since COVID's began, I know many of us more than ever are cooking at home. And I really appreciate leftovers now because it's less that I have to cook. And I think about those leftovers as ingredients in later meals, right? So if you cook chicken all at once, you can use that chicken for chicken salad. You can use that chicken for quesadillas, tacos. So think about your leftovers as ingredients to your meals. We want to get creative when we use them and help save them from the trash, right? We don't want to throw away food if we don't have to. And you can always preserve those leftovers and stop the clock on them going bad by putting them in the freezer in some, in a freezer appropriate container. And like I said, the extension service in your county has a variety of resources relating to preserving your food. So check them out for an understanding of food storage and how to do that safely. And we mentioned this earlier too. So sharing and donating your food is going to be a great way to save money as well. Your neighbor might need something. Give them some tomatoes if you have an abundance of tomatoes from your CSA box, right? Because you're going to get, abundance of food depending on what's in season, and you might not be able to eat that. So share that with others. If you have extra canned goods too, share that with others. Times are hard right now, harder than ever. So we all can appreciate a helping hand and free food. So yeah. And then we want to think about giving back to the earth. That means composting. And composting is a natural process that breaks down those, it allows microbes to break down certain materials and into their mineral components. And this finished product is going to be great for landscaping or using in your, plants or using in your garden. This is just a great option to use that waste smartly. So this is what I wanted to talk about is storing fruits and vegetables properly, because that's going to be the biggest way that we're going to save money. And oftentimes I forget myself how to store things properly. So this is a good overview for all of us. Most fruits and vegetables are bruise easily when they're not handled properly. So if you're harvesting produce, treat it carefully. Tossing fruits and vegetables into a basket or box may not leave a visible bruise, but the decay can soon begin under the skin. And some produce will not store well if it's bruised. We want to maximize our CSA, right? And have proper food storage so those foods last until our next box, so that we use those foods. So we want to think about this. So understanding how to properly store your produce is important to keeping your taste buds happy, right? We want to keep tomatoes, unripe melons, pears, peaches, and nectarines at room temperature to ensure the better flavor. They will ripen and they will become sweeter. Once they have ripened, you may store them in the refrigerator. If you slice them, they must be refrigerated after 2 hours. Sometimes as fruit ripens, it releases the gas that we mentioned earlier, which may impact other fruit and vegetables near it. It's a good idea to keep different fruits separate from one another to maintain the freshness as long as possible and avoid the ripening process taking place too quickly. Thinking about berries, my favorite food are strawberries, and I feel like you buy them and they go bad the next day. So we want to think about how to store those berries best. So berries will last longer in a refrigerator kept at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. They will have better flavor also if they're consumed within 3 days of their purchase. They should be washed in cold running water just before eating. Not when you pick them up from the store or your CSA box or the market, but just before eating. Cherries can be handled in the same manner, and as well as grapes. Grapes will last best within the first few days, or they'll taste best within the first few days, but they can last up to 2 weeks in the refrigerator. Citrus fruits like oranges, grapefruits, lemons, and limes can be stored for a few weeks at room temperature, but they last longer when they're stored in the refrigerator. So, vegetable storage. There's different methods that you need to store different vegetables at. And corn doesn't necessarily store well. Corn should be eaten right away, or frozen or preserved through canning methods in some way, but really it should be eaten right away for the best flavor. And that's within 3 days of purchase as well too. So leafy greens should be refrigerated and eaten within 2 days, and green and yellow beans should be refrigerated and used within 3 days. Lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, and cucumbers need to be refrigerated and consumed within a week. Celery, cabbage, and bell peppers can be kept for 2 weeks. Onions, garlic, potatoes, and winter squash will last several weeks in a cool, dry place. Keep potatoes away from the light to avoid the skin from turning green. So when you get your CSA box too, that's something to remember and understand, and how you consume your vegetables. You may want to consume those that will go bad first and consume those that will last longer later, right? We want to also make sure that we're keeping our storage areas clean and well ventilated to help increase the quality of food safety. The quality and food safety. All produce should be stored unwashed unless it appears very dirty from the field. Washing it too soon removes nature's protective coating, and the produce will begin to break down sooner and become mushy. So potatoes store better if they have that layer of dirt around them, right? Because that's going to help reduce moisture loss and prevent the infestation of waterborne bacteria into your potato, or fungus even. So that dirt is a protective layer for your foods, especially your potatoes. That's why it's important that we wash those type of vegetables before using with a nice vegetable brush under cool water, and scrub all that dirt off right before we use it. Lettuce and leafy greens should be washed right away and refrigerated because they will remain crisper that way. So we've talked about food storage. You see this nice chart here related to food storage. And there's a variety of so much information on food storage. And as I've repeated before, you can find this at your local extension service for free. They always say extension is the best kept secret, but it doesn't have to be a secret. These resources are out there for all Kentuckians to use. So as you store your food correctly, we want to cook it in simple, tasty recipes. And at the Extension Service and through the Nutrition Education Program, we have access to hundreds of recipes. Many recipes are in our Plated Up Kentucky Proud series, and those focus on commodities and locally grown foods, and they're available online on their site. And then Plan Eat Move is going to have more budget-friendly recipes. That's our Nutrition Education Program public-facing website. So those resources are out there to inspire you to cook your fresh fruits and vegetables. So as we continue this conversation, I want to give you some ideas about using these fruits and vegetables through a video of a recipe demonstration. Let's check this out. This video too, by the way, was made in part with NCTC, and that's a local television station that serves Allen County down in my neck of the woods, as well as part of Tennessee. So we really appreciate them allowing us to do these demonstrations. And sorry about this box. We're going to move it as far down as possible. And here we go. A little bit to cook some more plated up Kentucky Proud recipes, right? Today, we have a really budget-friendly recipe. This is good cheap eats, right? Not only is this Plated Up Kentucky Proud, this is also on our planeatmove.com website. That's the Nutrition Education Program's public-facing website. And not only is this recipe on there, there's a variety of many more, right? So what we've got in this recipe, we've got 2 cups of whole wheat. And what I did do is I split this recipe in half so I can pull one magically out of the oven for you all. So I'm going to make up this recipe right now, the other half. So we'll go through the ingredients, but let me get started by putting this into the boiling water, right? Those are our pasta, and I'm going to start a timer right here, and we'll hear that go off so we can combine all the goodness in. But what we have is a ½ pound of ground beef. In the full recipe, that would be a pound, right? And then we have 2 cups of whole wheat pasta. My big box store did not have whole wheat pasta, so I used the best different thing that I could find, right? I used what I could find, and that's what we need to do when we're trying to save money on cooking meals, right? A large onion, and that is split in half. That's a pretty big onion, but you need a big, large onion, cut, diced, however you please. We've got a lot of good seasonings as well, and that includes dry basil, black pepper, dried oregano, garlic powder, and I even added a bit of salt just until my ancestors told me to stop, so I would not put too much in there, right? So then it has carrots, and it says chopped from a large carrot, but I was trying to save time, so I just got some shredded carrots, right? And we'll just get it done that way. But you could also get carrots from the farmer's market, and you could definitely grate those up, chop those up, and they would be just as tasty. It also called for a can of Italian seasoned tomatoes. So this is a half a can drained, right? And it looks like it's producing more liquid, but that'll be good in our casserole here. And then it's got some spinach that is chopped up. I used a pair of kitchen shears and just chopped it on up as much as I could. This is baby spinach, so it's going to mix in really well into this pasta bake. And then some cheese, and that goes on top before you put it in the oven. So super easy, super quick. Let's get going browning this meat, okay? So I've got this ½ pound of ground beef, and I'm learning these knobs in this kitchen. And you know how every stove cooks a bit differently, right? But we'll get it going. So I'm gonna brown this ground beef a little bit. It says to put the ground beef and the onions in the same time. I liked a little bit of that oil, you know, release so that those onions are browned a little more and get that flavor. And this is really lean beef, which if you're trying to save money, you might not be able to get the leanest meat. And that's okay. You can drain it in the sink or drain it in the trash can if it's, you know, super fatty, or drain it in some way that you're not putting it down your sink, but you can drain it and it's just as fine. This meat was so lean I didn't have to drain it much, which is great. It's getting hot. It's starting. So we've got our pasta over here going pretty powerfully. It should be done pretty soon. At about 7 minutes or so. And so spinach is in season right now in Kentucky, and that's why we're making this in this whole area, not just Kentucky, it's in season. So that's why we're making this fresh dish. You can find this right now at your local farmer's market. And spinach is nutrient dense, which means it's low in calories and high in nutrients like vitamin A and vitamin C and calcium. It's also got a lot of fiber in it. So spinach is just a great thing, because you know this is going to turn into nothing when we put it in this pot and cook it. So it's a great way to put a little punch of veggies into your dishes. All right, we're getting to brown a little bit. It's starting to get hot. You know, different types of stoves cook differently. I really appreciate a gas stove, but that's not what everybody has. Some folks have electric stoves, and it's just about learning your equipment, right? And I had to learn this whole kitchen, so it's been an interesting setup. We'll get it though. So this non-stick skillet, we're getting some oil. So we're cooking now. Our ground beef is getting brown and it's released some oil, so I'm gonna add these onions so those onions can pick up that flavor, right? And get some color on them. They always taste better when they're a bit brown. So we're supposed to just cook this until The onions are soft and have a fragrance, right? And it's going pretty quick now. We've got this stovetop doing what it does. I'm really thankful. So thinking about spinach in a cup of spinach, this is about a cup or 3/4 of a cup. It only has 10 calories. So it's something, just a great, punch of nutrients to add into your dishes, your pasta dishes, like this spinach pasta bake that we're making, or even your lasagna dishes or spaghetti. You can add some spinach in there just to get that punch of nutrients. So this was a super lean ground beef. I'm appreciative of it. I didn't really have to drain it much when I made the other half of this recipe, so I could show you all. That's looking good. I'm gonna add in this carrot really soon. And so thinking about when you get your spinach from like your farmer's market or wherever you get your spinach, you want to store that in the coldest part of your refrigerator. So in your crisper drawer, right? So that it's super cold and it's going to keep longer. But spinach usually only lasts for about 3 days or so, honestly. But I've learned that if you put a paper towel, there's a timer. Let's stop it. And turn this off. And I have a colander over here. I'm going to drain this pasta. And I'm going to return it to the pot so that it stays warm while we get the rest done. There we go. Take it off the heat though, so we don't have burnt pasta. All right, let's cover it up. This is looking pretty much done. So what we do now is we add our carrots. Let's mix that up. Carrots added. Then we add all of our seasonings, right? That's going to give it a lot of flavor. And honestly, it didn't really call for salt. I just felt like the ancestors told me to put it in there, so it needed to go. And I didn't put very much because the tomatoes have some seasoning in them. Just going to mix this up. Let those carrots get a little soft. And other spring vegetables you might want to consider putting into your diet are strawberries. They're super in season right now, and they're great savory or sweet. And we have a variety of recipes on Plated Up Kentucky's website that you can check out that feature all these in-season things. You can even search the recipes by season. You can put spring in right now so you can see what's in season and look for recipes that you might have of things on hand that might be in your garden. All right, I'm gonna add these tomatoes in there. And turn this down a bit. Smells really good. And I like that this is a pasta dish but features a lot of vegetables, right? We want to get this spinach wilted. And we can even cover it to wilt it. We're just going to get it done so you guys can see. All right. Final add is this pasta, this pre-cooked pasta. And if you can find whole wheat pasta at your local store, do that. If you can't, this dish is still awesome because you're going to get your veggies in. All right. We'll let this meld all together. But let's check out the finished product, okay? Yum. It's so cheesy and so nice. Check that out, y'all. Super cheesy, super nutrient packed, all these good veggies. So try this recipe out. If you'd like to try this recipe out, reach out to Barry at barry.hyatt@nctc.com or check out the Plated Up Kentucky Proud website. Also, you can find this recipe and many more on our Facebook page and Instagram page, Plated Up Kentucky Proud, and at planeatmove.com. So check out all those good resources from your local university cooperative extension service. And thank you for watching. All right. So we saw an example of a recipe. And now I can't get back to that, but there's nothing else on there. So we saw a good recipe. We saw our spinach pasta bake that's Plan Eat Move, so it's budget friendly. And we know where to find some recipes to use those goodies in our CSA boxes. So if you need more assistance, please reach out to your local county extension service. We don't want to be the best kept secret. We want you to use our free resources. We want you to learn how to preserve food safely and avoid these unsafe ways on the internet. We want you to be able to have an abundance of recipes so you can eat healthier. So reach out to your extension service. And thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, LaToya. Like she said, if anyone has any questions and they want to drop those into the chat, go for it. I have a few questions for you myself, just based on what I've seen in my role. One of them is, where would you guide people if they are receiving something in their box, they've never seen it before, they know the name of it, but they're a little intimidated by it? I know kohlrabi is always something that throws people off.
Kohlrabi's good. It's in the cabbage family, so you can cook it similarly to that. I would encourage folks, like I said, to reach out to your extension service. Many of those offices have what family and consumer sciences agents, which are basically community home ec teachers. You can shoot them an email and they'd be happy to help you. You can also pull up those recipes on planeatmove.com and just check out which produce is being used, because it's going to give you some information on how to cook that as well. I don't think we have very many kohlrabi recipes. We need to check that out and get that done, because it's a good vegetable.
It is, yes. And it is, sometimes it looks a bit alien to people. So it's just, it throws you off a little bit. Do you have any tips? I know we have a lot of parents that will get a CSA share, or they'll do a family share. And I know parents are always looking for ways that they can sneak some veggies into recipes. Do you have any tips for that, or anything that comes to mind that you know of? I know I always say smoothies, but there's only so much spinach you can put in a smoothie to make it still healthy, but taste good, I guess.
Yeah, you can sneak these vegetables into things like macaroni and cheese. Even you can puree some sweet potatoes and sneak that into your macaroni and cheese. They'll never know the difference. Definitely pureed vegetables are something awesome to sneak into soups and, like we said, pasta dishes. And then you can sneak things into your pancakes and different things like that, and use those fruits in those to sneak those in. But vegetables, sneaking those in is great through a puree.
Those are some great tips. I always forget about sneaking like squash and mac and cheese, which is perfect for a fall CSA, because everyone's getting those beautiful butternut squash or acorn squash, and it's orange, so it looks perfect with cheese sauce. And Angela actually said in the comments that kohlrabi is good trimmed and eaten like an apple. She learned that from a previous CSA years ago, which I have never heard of. You might get some weird looks with that, but you know, whatever works for you. I think that's great. And then
in a salad too, right? Similarly, like that.
Yes. Yeah. And I know Chef Tanya from the Food Connection, who's doing our event next week, she will sometimes grate it and she'll put it in slaws or top it on top of tacos, things like that, because it's so good fresh as is. But I know a lot of people will roast it or different ways to try it out. And then one last question for me. Just, are there any food waste tricks that you do yourself? I know I will look at food waste tricks all the time and I'll be like, that's such a good idea. And then I don't actually apply it to my life unless it makes it easier or I do end up seeing results fast. So I just didn't know if there's anything that you do personally.
Some of the things that we mentioned are things that I do. In my home, we don't have any children, so it's just me and my husband and my dog that was making all that noise earlier. So, I make sure that I don't buy more food than we need. I might buy a couple of potatoes at a higher price to avoid having a bag that's going to go bad. Or I might buy something large and then go take it to my mother or grandmother and split that and share the bounty with her, because times are hard for everybody. I know my mom and grandma are on a fixed income, so they're always going to appreciate me sharing that. Also, I think about the leftovers that I have. Even if I go out to eat at, say, the Mexican restaurant and there's meat left over, I'm going to chop that meat up and put it in a quesadilla the next day. I'm going to chop that meat up and make a taco or eat it with eggs or something like that. So just making sure that I'm using those leftovers wisely and not wasting any food.
Oh yeah, and it's definitely a mental shift, I think, because especially you were listing off all of the numbers and we're the winners in terms of how much food waste we have. It's definitely a shift because society doesn't really it's not a big deal to throw things out.
No.
So when you start thinking about, well, I don't want to throw that out, how can I get creative with it? I think it's really great. And Sharon popped in the chat. She said many of our CSAs offer recipes, tips, and newsletters for their members, which is very true. And some people or some farms even have Facebook groups where everyone can contribute. They said, oh, we got, I keep going back to squash, but they'll say, oh, I got squash this week. This is what I made with it. So you can always draw inspiration from others. And I think that's great. Well, thank you so much, LaToya.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, if anyone has any questions or reaches out afterwards, I'll be sure to reach out to you and make sure we can get those answered. And I'm just going to pop up, I'm going to share my screen really quick and just show you all our last resources here. And so just if you weren't here for the beginning, just a little backtrack for that. If you're not already a member of our CSAs in Kentucky Facebook group, be sure to join that. That's just right there at the link. You can also look for it in your Facebook search bar. And then if you're looking for a list of our partner farms that we're going to feature over the next 8 days, but also ones that we featured back in the spring and ones that just are great CSA resources in our state, you can find that at the Kentucky Proud CSA directory. And our link is right there. That will also be in the Facebook group as well. So we have lots of easy access. And then make sure that you sign up for a fall CSA share. If you have any questions, you can always reach out in the Facebook group or reach out to any of us, the partners individually. We would be happy to answer those questions. And I think that is it. So if there's any last questions or anything, feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for attending our event today.